Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hello, everybody.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi. I apparently am doing a great public service for the people. I've been told
a service,
that,
all right.
that me delaying you and stutter stepping you and pump faking you allows the mobile viewers time to load the stream. You're welcome,
nice.
America.
Evan's never needed help with that. So.
This is me for like 4 minutes.
It's great.
And I'm just
awesome.
like, okay. Okay.
It gives me life. It's how how all the vampires and What You Do in the Shadows get energy in different ways. Mm-hmm. That's how I get energy. That's how I sustain myself through the week.
Lord Almighty. We also get started with our Trumpet Blast. You can get one if you support us at our highest level on Patreon, but we also kick it off with our first pick and give away $50, $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com, ! Raffle in the chat for your chance to win, and subscribe first, particularly with Bezos Bucks if you'd like, to get 2 chances to win a $50 gift certificate. Anything you want from CoolStuffInc.com. RPGs, Magic singles, whatever, man.
Ooh,
go nuts.
Actually, I haven't looked. What's some cool stuff that's on sale recently at Cool Stuff?
I believe there was a D&D mini set that came out that you would be interested in.
Let's take a look. Now, they delayed some of the D&D stuff.
They did. WizKids delayed a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
I mean, look, WizKids didn't have the best reputation to make release dates sometimes.
I get you.
So, that's kind of an issue anyway. So, no surprises
15% off played singles for the spring cleaning sale ends on Sunday.
It's true.
So, there you go. That's a good deal.
All right. So, for our first pick of this week, Wizards tweeted out 2 days ago that 1 week from today on 5/18, there will be a banned and restricted update impacting the Vintage, Legacy, and Brawl formats. MTGO leagues for those formats will end at that time and be restarted with the new BNR update.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What could they possibly bring? What could they be?
This has to be a Lurrus thing, because we've talked about how Legacy and Vintage have just been inundated with Lurrus decks, and there's been a lot of debate as to whether or not that's a bad thing. Some of the diehard Vintage players feel that there is still a lot of originality there, but ultimately it does boil down to, I think you said this, Evan, which version of Survival do you want to play?
Right.
Do you want to play Blue Survival, Red Survival? And that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing for a format. And so most people interpret this to mean that Lurrus is going to go. Some people were suggesting a plot twist where they might get rid of Black Lotus and LED instead, as a way to kind of protect these new cards, which haven't even come out yet on paper. Yeah. But the replies to this were pretty swift, a lot of quote tweeting, and the typical announcement of an announcement that Wizards loves to do.
Sure. Well, I've encouraged this announcement because I like the fact that we can sit here and pontificate on what they might do.
Well,
there can be articles and opinions that come out that may influence Wizards in that week in the middle. They still, they can do whatever they want.
But it sucks playing a dud format for a week. I was going to stream Vintage on Sunday, but there's little point in me streaming it when a lot of the decks that are out right now are there to adapt to this weird wonderland that we're in. So, I do feel for the people that are trying to, stream or play competitively or whatever, because whatever format you're working on may not be here in a week. And so I would prefer if they just kind of pulled the bandage off rather than leaving this weird week of nonsense.
Yeah. I am hoping that they ban the companion mechanic in Brawl. Because I think that it is unreasonable for the format to have a commander and a companion. Mm-hmm. I've been playing an Atris Gyruda deck, which allows me to essentially start with 9 cards in hand.
That's insane.
Which is stupid.
It's insane.
And it's not conducive to fun gameplay or interesting deck building, I think, when you are constrained by, you're playing Narset, but you're also playing Zerda or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm hopeful that that's part of the Brawl announcement. For the old formats, Legacy, Vintage, etc., I think that every format has been inundated with companions, and it is the argument of which version of Survival do you want to play. Do you want to play Lurrus or do you want to play Yorion in Standard? Those are your choices. Pick one.
And like, look, even if Lurrus has different, more varied archetypes than Survival of the Fittest did, that doesn't make it any better. Probably makes it worse. It's so busted. It turns out that cards made in 1993 don't really go well with cards made in 2020. That's just kind of where we're at.
I was a little surprised that Modern wasn't involved in this because Lurrus Burn has really been dominating Modern specifically. But the bottom line is, a Lurrus on turn 3 or even, turn 2 is not as bad when you're dealing with a Lurrus with Lion's Eye Diamond or Black Lotus. Those two cards really change the game significantly. Right. The power level is just sky high. So I don't think it could be anything but Lurrus. I'd be very surprised if it was.
Now, they could sneak something in. They could sneak in a Rampaging Ferocidon with their energy bands.
Or a Golgari Grave Troll.
Or a Golgari Grave Troll. They could sneak in an Astrolabe, under the wire.
I would be okay with Astrolabe getting out of here. That card is stupid.
Right? They could sneak in something else in addition to what they've already done.
Yeah.
But are we going to look back on this period of time from the release of Companions to the bannings, assuming they get rid of any of the Companions, be it Lurrus, be it all of the Companion mechanic, whatever, what have you, how similar to that is the bannings of Oko, Veil of Summer, Field of the Dead, I'm missing one, there was a fourth one in there that I'm forgetting, but that sort of season.
Well, so the issue is, and we'll probably talk about this once we talk about the Morrow thing and the hornet's nest that we kicked. But the issue isn't that they're making these cards. We've said it before. We want them to try. We want to have nice things, and we want to have them try new ideas and new mechanics and things like that. But if you're going to put the pedal to the metal like this, you also need to be willing to ban as aggressively. You can't have the same quarterly ban schedule when you're releasing cards like Oko and Underworld Breach, because your formats will be in shambles if you wait too long. And so the problem isn't that these cards are being made, it's that they're still taking this very weird approach to it, where they're still treating it as if we were dealing with cards of a lesser power level. And so, and this is also an anomaly too. Ikoria specifically, this set came out, 2 weeks before the paper release, as opposed to 1. And you gave people a full extra week to do nothing but play with these cards, and they not only broke them, they evolved them. And so I don't think that what happened here could necessarily happen the same way again. This is just a really weird time.
Right. It would have occurred on pre-release weekend, so it was a week before essentially, and then we're out pushed. So think about how insane it is that the set releases in 2 days and we're going to have bannings in 5.
Yeah. So Wizards has a little bit of a history with this kind of thing. I think that the discussion is Companion inherently a broken mechanic? Along the lines of Storm, Dredge, Affinity for Artifacts, Phyrexian Mana, Delve, right? That's kind of the list. Sure. Or Energy, I guess, is inherently broken because there weren't checks and balances in place with Energy. Right. Or is it something that you can fix by getting rid of a few of the companions because those specific companions are too high of a power level? More along the lines of banning a Bloodbraid Elf, because it's not like Cascade is broken, but Bloodbraid Elf was. Right? Which one for its time, for its day, that's what we're talking about. So which one is, where are we on the scale of things? I think that it's possible that you say that you cannot use, the cards aren't banned, the word companion is banned. You can't have companions. Right? Because you can put Lurrus in your deck. If you want to put Lurrus in your deck, feel free. Go nuts.
Free, yeah. But you can't have companions and Brawl.
I think there's a difference between having it in your deck, though, because I have 4-ofs in my deck all the time that I don't ever see. That's just how variance works. But you have a card that you are guaranteed to see. Yeah. And guaranteed to have, assuming you have the mana to cast it, you are guaranteed to have this card. And that changes the game drastically.
Yeah.
There's if one thing that is consistent about Magic, and it stays consistent to this day, is that you'll never play the same game twice. You'll never have the same tricks and the same situations and blah, blah, and it's cool. But Companion moves it closer towards having the same game all the time, and I don't think you want to push there.
And typically, when cards are too powerful towards the consistency line, that's when they tend to ban them. Going back to Stoneforge Mystic and Jace, those games looked all pretty much the same. They were good, but they also looked the same, as opposed to Bloodbraid Elf, where all the games kind of looked different. So when you have a card like Once Upon a Time, like Field of the Dead, where all the games end up kind of running together, that's when Wizards goes, this is neither fun nor interesting. And that's kind of where we're headed towards with Companion. Again, I'm not a legacy or vintage expert.
Well,
and I tend to prefer a ton of randomness anyway.
I think that Companion, overall, I think Companion was actually pretty cool. I enjoy it in Limited. It's strong, but there's like things you have to do in Limited. There's certain cards you can't get when you get a Giganta or whatever, and that's fine. It's just that, I feel like Wizards already has the tools in place to get rid of these. If your win rate is too high, you ban it. That's all.
And we're seeing a lot of the classic symptoms. You're seeing pillars of formats being forced out. Shops and Dredge are nowhere to be found in Vintage, which is unreal. Oath has seen a significant decline as well. When you see, powerful archetypes being forced out, when you also see an influx of really bizarre decks that are built only to fight a deck, those are two warning signs that you have a broken strategy on your hands. And so I think that when the Companions are dealt with, you will see the influx, which is another sign of broken deck. When it goes, you start to see decks that had been held down, and even different decks that weren't allowed a chance to come rushing back in. And so, this is something I've seen before with, Summerbloom and all these other things. And so I think this is going to go exactly as we're expecting it to, and these cards need to go.
It would be one thing if your Companion was a Hill Giant, like we discussed this week. If it was a vanilla 3/3 for 4, but was an extra card in your opening hand. And I think there was a discussion about this on Twitter, where it's like, if you could just have an extra 1/1 for 7 that was your Companion, had no deck building restriction, but was just an extra, crappy 2/2 for 5, right? Like something awful. Right. Would you play it? And the answer is, of course you would. You would give up that 15th sideboard card slot every single time.
Yeah, every single time, because why not? It's free.
But the difference is that now you're getting really good cards, like a restricted lifelinking Underworld Breach, or a 5/5 for 5, or a flyer that blinks your entire board with minimal deck building restrictions. All you have to do to meet those restrictions is have a bigger deck, or play, or not play Mayhem Devil, right? Like that's the restriction that we're talking about. Right. Oh darn, I don't get to play Embercleave anymore. Well, at least I get this extra ridiculous rare, mythic level rare every game that can't be interacted with.
And Luris also, another symptom of powerful cards is when you don't even have to really try to play them, You're still just generating value with Luris, even if you're just sort of, juggling baubles, just being able to recur an Urza's Bauble, recur a Mishra's Bauble, a Soul Guide Lantern, even if you don't have a Lotus, you're still just getting value out of that in such a way and to such a degree that you'll just bury the other person if they don't have that too. And that's one thing that really surprised me about a lot of the Luris decks was how fair they were to a certain extent. No one really was really playing them in like broken combo decks. You're really just getting value out of them, and so you are pairing them with Deathrite Shamans, and it's just
one of the things that I felt was an aspect here was, and then they keep going back to this, right, where they said we just can't test older formats, right? They keep on and on about that, right? And they say, well, we can't test all of Modern, and we can't test all of Legacy, and all of Vintage, and blah blah blah. And then they go, well, and I think this is a problem with messaging. You also released Modern Horizons, and you're talking about releasing another Modern Horizons.
But look at how many fun toys were in there that make you wonder if they tested them. Arkham's Astrolabe?
And you busted a lot of what Modern was. Remember Hogak? Hogak was okay in a booster pack about a year and a half ago or whatever. Craziness, just craziness. So it's weird to me. I think there is a messaging problem of them going on and on about how they can't test for old formats, but they want to sell you cards that go into those older formats, clearly designed to be stupidly busted at times. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Like even all the way back to Mental Misstep was weird. It was like, you really didn't think that would warp something completely in half?
I don't think... It's definitely an interesting discussion point as to whether or not they should be testing for it. I think at the very least, we've seen them pull people from the community to have consulting roles like Sam Black and Patrick Sullivan, thank you.
There you go.
But, I think so we've seen them pull from the community before. And so if you can't necessarily test for it, then I think that you should make more of an effort to bring people in that have experience in those formats, that could look at these cards and say, hey, have you heard of Lion's Eye Diamond? Just to at least be able to bring up that concern, even if you're not able to actually test for it, as opposed to people that just have no knowledge of these things.
And to be fair, Tom Ross did do some contract work at Wizards, as I understand, working on Modern Horizons. So it's not like they were 100% blind.
Right.
But wow, some of those cards were and are still ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think it's just also a factor of being in Renton. I remember when I was doing the Community Cup, and we had to do like a deck building challenge, and those of us from the community, we knew what certain cards were doing. Corsair Krufix was live, Athreos was live, and it was just so funny seeing some of the Wizards folks who had never seen these cards once they left the building and didn't know what decks they'd been slotted into. And so there is a little bit of a disconnect and an isolation there when you go to work for Wizards, in that, and maybe things have changed in several years, but they just didn't understand what happened once those cards left the door.
Right. Well, there's, I can imagine there's sort of a bubble, that exists around, because you're living 2 to 2.5 years in the future constantly.
Yeah. And you can't take in those feedback. They can't even look at like mock cards, so that's part of that's intentional. They have to wall themselves off.
My favorite, whenever I see an R&D member playing in one of those like outside events, and then someone plays a card against them, and then they go, "Oh, that's what that card ended up."
Yes,
looking like.
Or they're like, "I didn't know that was the name of it." Or
that did something else when we were testing it. It's cool to see it out in the wild, and it's like.
All right, so moving here, which
before we move on real quick, I'm a little frightened that Aaron's house is haunted. So when you were trying to think of Patrick Sullivan's name, what you did was you snapped twice, then said Patrick Sullivan, and then said thank you, and neither Evan or I said the name.
I was thinking.
Well, I guess she was thinking herself.
Patrick Sullivan. Thank you, disembodied voice. It's like what? Who was helping? Who's in there?
I was thanking you for your rating and your patience, because I was holding up the shelf.
Oh my God! Blink twice if there's the ghosty man nearby. All right,
it was the mouse. Just
Mark Rosewater.
That's that helpful mouse.
Speaking of all of this assumptions and surprises and whatever, Mark Rosewater has been doing a Inquiring Minds Want to Know. This is just Twitter polls. And on the Twitter poll, he'll ask a question, and we'll see where it goes. So this one says, our goal is to do both, but if you had to pick one, which do you prefer? That a set matches your assumptions, or that a set's execution surprises you? Which one do you guys fall on?
I don't like the
Oh, here we go. Question. Here we go. They have to be both.
No, it's not. I'm not picking. I'm not making this Sophie's choice of game design.
Wow.
This is not wow. This is a false equivalency, and I won't be party to it.
Mario's choice.
This is where there were people out of the woodwork about how this doesn't have to be A or B, and Mark continued. God bless him, one of the most patient men.
I would have blocked half these people.
Saintly patience.
You think that what is happening with my hair?
What is happening with your hair? My God! But look, he was saying, look, when we do cycling, we've done cycling a million times. So, you're going to know what cycling is, and cycling is going to be in the set. And, if we do this new mechanic, like Companion, and, that's going to surprise you, because Lord knows we've never had this in Magic before. Would you rather have more of that type of stuff, or would you rather have more sort of iterations that, it's going to have cycling, that's how cycling works, that's the cycling cards I expect to see.
I'm kind of with Ruben on this. I think a little bit of both is necessary. I don't think it should swing more than the other.
I don't like the... So I understand the question. I understand why you would ask the question. I don't like the framing of the question. And that's partially a limit of the social media platform that is Twitter and the poll format. That it pits two options against you, and you don't get to
option 3. You don't get
long
and there's treatise of explanation why you don't like the question.
And there's a line in the sand, and there's no gray area, and you have to choose one, and you have to choose only one.
Right.
I don't want to pick either, so that's why I don't like the question. I understand how it could be valuable to have that information, but I can't imagine that any information or any data gathered from that poll would be helpful in the way that they want it to be helpful.
I mean, yeah, I can certainly understand it. For what it's worth, 67%, this is, 3 out of 4 here, said that they set execution surprises.
67% is 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3, sorry, 2 out of 3, not 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
They want what?
They want the surprises versus the matching the assumptions.
Yeah, I think, look, all right,
I
let's
voted surprises.
ignore all the
I
other
want
histrionics.
surprises.
I think I want balance. I think balance is what I want in a game.
Urban balancer.
Yeah. I don't like that because I feel like that is the type of argument that we're here for balance. We're here to make sure it's cool. Is that there's going to be sort of power pushes. There's going to be no Ob Nixilis's cruelties where you get like one of the best common removal spells of all time because, balance wise, we've made really garbage removal spells for limited and you've just been stuck, taking them because they're garbage, but they say destroy target creature.
Can we just get balance again? That'd be cool.
Yeah, balance will be fine. Efro wrote a very long note about how he feels that Companion has failed, and that this, of course, can be it's not two different options; it can be the same thing. Ultimately, we're in a gray scale of creativity where we're trying to make new things that get people excited, regardless of whether it's old mechanic, new thing, old thing, reprints coming back. Like, Wizards has such a weird and unbelievably difficult job. And just think about how difficult it is, and then a year and a half to 2 years later, somebody starts yelling at you for what you did a year and a half or 2 years later, 2 years before. Like, holy cow, that's the world you're in, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, and we can all agree that like nobody should be calling for like firings or like anything
weird.
like that. Like
I think that it's fine to have big major missteps.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Mistakes are okay. Mistakes are okay.
Mistakes are fine as long as we admit to the mistakes when they happen. You're allowed to make missteps, especially in Magic the Gathering. We're going to be here regardless of whether companion level mistakes happen or not. We love you, Magic the Gathering. We love you, Mark Rosewater et al. But we also need you to understand that when these mistakes are made, they need to be recognized and rectified.
Yeah. Yeah, I think taking the stigma away from that is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have never and will never try to point fingers at any one particular person. Wizards of the Coast is a machine, and it's got a ton of people you have literally never heard of in your life who make huge decisions about what happens to the game. So there's a whole chain of command and the different assets, whether it's digital or paper. Like, everything has so many moving parts when it comes to Magic the Gathering. It's useless to try to point out one person as the person to blame for some problem you have.
Yeah.
So, moving on, the MagicFest Online was a thing where you could pay $25 to play in a qualifier, and at the end of the week they had some sort of like big tournament you could play in for like 10K, and at the end of the season they had like a 50K event or whatever. Okay, cool, that's all scrapped. We're not doing it anymore because...
Which is too bad, but...
I can imagine it just didn't, like it probably had a moment there at the beginning where people were excited and playing in it, and then...
And then it didn't?
It didn't. I don't know that. I didn't check attendance records. Don't note that. But I would say...
I don't know.
Ultimately saying that they say, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. This season of MagicFest Online will be the last as you know it. We will be taking a week off next week, and we'll be back soon with a new way for Magic players to gather and compete while we can't play in person. So, not sure what that means.
It's weird, because I thought it seemed beloved and popular. It seemed like it was a success.
Well run.
Yeah.
This was where they were having coverage like 24/7.
Yeah.
And they had different rosters of the coverage teams that was going through the thing.
Yeah.
And that was neat, but, if there's not enough even digital butts in seats, you're not going to be able
Well,
to
do we
keep
know
moving.
that's the reason? I mean, maybe
No, we don't. And
Yeah.
I don't think that was the reason.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is. What I'm saying is that is the most straightforward, easy to understand reason.
It would be the
Any
most
other
straightforward, easy to understand reason if it were the reason.
If
but
it
I
were.
don't think it's the reason, is my point. I think that's a jump to an assumption.
That is definitely a jump in assumption.
I mean, when I look
for
at
that.
this, my first assumption is that May was the month where, lockdowns were kind of being lessened a little bit. There's a lot of talk about that. Maybe they assumed that we would be able to play again. If this was created this was probably created on the fly. And so,
Right.
like, a lot of people, they didn't know how long this pandemic was last. So maybe it wasn't meant to be indefinite because they didn't think we'd still be here.
Yeah.
And for them to have to extend it would involve time and resources. Maybe they do want to keep it fresh so that it's not stale. I don't think it's a success thing.
I think it's also possible that
We'll see.
they have something else in the works.
Yeah.
That, this particular iteration is over and that they're going to figure out some other similar but not the same iteration because the first version was essentially copying the entire model whole hog, and the new version is going to have some more innovations in it. I think that the bottom line for me is I thought it was a huge success. It was always popular. I saw nothing but people loving it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't popular enough, that's too bad, and that's unfortunate.
I mean,
But
I could see there's some notes in the comments here about maybe it was just too much coverage. Maybe 24/7 coverage is
could be.
a lot of coverage. So
Yeah,
when
But
they
you have
couldn't,
time zones to think about. I mean,
right? But you also couldn't, for example, someone else noted they couldn't get all competitors to stream, let alone the big competitors with the names you might have heard of to stream. So then you have to kind of just feature whoever happens to be in the tournament. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you lose star power if you
True.
can't get those certain people to stream. Their work.
Yeah, I mean,
I
there could
will
be
say
any
though, it
number of
was a nice
factors.
opportunity for people.
It
I
was.
saw a lot of new faces doing covers that we hadn't seen before, so that was a great opportunity. And from what I understand, they were also paying those folks too, which is good on them because some of these folks have probably lost income in the meantime, and so I hope they do something.
I'm a little sad I didn't get the phone call, didn't get the call up.
Wow, the
Where you at?
confidence.
I
Where
wanna
you at,
be-
CFB? Come on, man.
I'm gonna tag them on Twitter.
I used to be mediocre a half a decade ago. Where's my phone call?
You took a nap to record this show. Can you imagine
Listen,
them asking
I had a
you to do that?
headache. First of all, listen, you're threatening to cancel the entire program because of a small mammal-related problem.
I'm the old man.
I've got straight up medical issues. I moved out of my closet for you. How
It
dare
wouldn't
you,
be the
Miss
first time someone
Campbell?
moved out of their closet for me. Just saying.
Hey yo, that's not a bad comeback, and I also get it.
That's pretty good. Look, did either of you guys check out the Distance Between the Planes video? Yeah, wasn't that great? That was so great. Lair
was really
Community
well
College
done.
this week had a terrific video featuring a bunch of awesome cosplayers, and there was a song too, right? Like it was a whole
Well,
thing.
there was a bit
Kind
of
of
a the professor sort of had a soliloquy that went along with like a narration almost.
Fair enough, yeah, with a
that
cool
went
soundtrack.
along with the performance. A little bit of a soundtrack is a good way to phrase it. Where he was sort of describing everyday activities, and those everyday activities were being performed by the cosplayers who were doing the Planeswalker things, and what the Planeswalkers would be doing while in social isolation or other stuff like that. It was really just delightful and well done. A lot of familiar faces from the Magic cosplaying community, having some really just cute performances in a nice little compact video.
Very nice. All right. Pascal Maynard, who got infamous for choosing the foil Tarmogoyf over the Shock or whatever it was at the time, now says that he has created his own Magic store. He says, been working in Magic stores my whole life, and thanks to Mythic_Society and your support, I can finally say I have my own. I oddly love sorting cards, so getting to do that while managing content and tournaments in a way that our little community wants is a dream come true. So,
Wild time to try to be starting a business, but more power to him.
sure. I mean, obviously we want people to chase the dreams they got, so, work hard. I hope it works out, and good luck to Pascal. All right. For those who may listen to the show on Spotify, you can now listen to Weekly MTG and Drive to Work. Mark's not Drive to Work for the moment, but
Right,
will
the
again
Drive
later.
to Work podcast.
Right,
It's
as
a
it's
name
known.
of the
He should rebrand it to Drive to Work just because we all have to muster up the drive to work from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed
staying
meanings.
in my driveway. You know what that means.
So that's really cool. So you can find them on Spotify. Again, you can find us there as well. I mean, there's lots of people who do listen to us on Spotify.
Yeah, thank you.
What does I want you to picture in your mind's eye. I want you to just like go inside of your own skull and brainwave for a minute. When you picture Mark Rosewater's house, what does it look like to you? Like, what's your if Mark Rosewater
meticulously clean,
if he moved to your Animal Crossing island, what would Mark Rosewater's house look like?
Very clean. I also don't play that game, so I couldn't.
Oh wow. I don't play that game either, but I thought you were like,
No,
I don't play that game.
No, I don't.
Oh yeah,
I ain't into that.
Get your hypothetical Mark Rosewater house questions out of here, sir. No, I'm saying I'm not asking you to start playing and hope Raymond shows up. I'm just saying if in your head, what is Mark Rosewater's feng shui setup?
Does it look like the Connor's house on Roseanne?
Yeah. Is it 2 stories? Is it 1 story? Is it an apartment? Is it the Jetsons pad? Like, what is it?
I'd say it's definitely a house.
Well, yeah, it's a house. Sure.
So.
I think it's. I picture like a tall, skinny, kind of Victorian house, but with like a real modern interior.
Fascinating.
I don't know. That's my fan casting of his house.
Guys, it's a slow week. All right.
Listen,
moving on here.
No one else wants to play this game with me? Unbelievable.
The ultimate draft guide to Ikoria has been posted on draftsim.com, and it is pretty awesome. This is about as deep a dive as you can make into any format with example deck lists, with every single type of archetype, with every different splash, why this card is good, why this card is bad. It's got memes, it's got rankings, it's got everything you could possibly. It's got, to this point, thanks to 17 lands, at 17 lands, they have how much, they've been tracking companions. And the sample size here, noting the percentage of them in the main deck, the win percentage in the main deck, the percentage as companion and the win percentage as companion. Guess what? You win more when you run companions.
Yeah.
Who knew?
That's amazing.
Who the thunk it?
Yeah. So it's really, really in depth. I was super impressed. I learned some things. I had no idea Whisper Squad was so sweet. I haven't been drafting that card, so I couldn't tell you.
Right.
But apparently it's BA and awesome.
Right.
So stuff like that you'll learn, and maybe you can find some different archetypes and stuff you can try out. But I am loving this limited format. I have the highest limited rating I think I've ever had in Magic Arena.
So let me ask you this.
High five.
So I'm going to be pre-releasing this weekend. My boyfriend's going to bring up a couple pre-release packs. So we're going to have a pre-release for 2. No, that's not a euphemism. But I have not touched this set yet at all. So like, what should I be looking for? Like, what advice do you have for me?
Sealed or draft?
This is pre-release. So straight out the box,
Sealed.
cracked in some packs.
Mutate is the most powerful thing you probably can do in Sealed.
Okay, mutate.
In
Any
sealed,
colors?
In sealed,
in all 5
mutate is
colors.
probably what you want to do.
Okay.
If you're playing sealed, you're going to have 6 non-basic lands minimum.
Oh, okay.
Because every pack comes with
A game land or Evolving Wilds.
Yeah, a tap land or a game land or an
sounds
Evolving
good.
Wild. So you'll be able to splash.
Okay.
There's also Far Finder, and there's the Crystal Cycle. Like there's a ton of ways
Tons of fixing.
to fix. So you shouldn't be afraid to play some big splashy cards. Unfortunately, the ultimatums are kind of a trap because they're a little expensive to try to get. Like, you end up with 3 red in play instead of 3 black in play, and oh darn, my whole game plan is screwed up.
But the red, white, black one is completely insane. The ruinous one that destroys their board.
And the one that draws the Jeskai one that draws 5 cards, also good.
Right.
Removal. So all of the creatures are good. All of the removal is good. The removal is cheaper. So you should play most of your removal. Don't be afraid to splash for removal. Blood Curdle's insane. I don't know if Fire Prophecy's value goes down in Sealed because it's a slower format. Probably
that card
not.
is done. That card's ridiculous. So Fire Prophecy, arguably one of the best common removal spells of all time. So yeah, the format's super slow. You can dirtle your face off. Just run everything that looks sweet, everything that looks powerful. Jam it together. Make the mana work. It'll be sweet. You'll have fun.
Okay.
Let's see. So everything is awful, and we don't say certain words on this podcast because they're filtered out automatically by various things. So
is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They even, they can even detect the bleep words that you're trying to bleep out, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, there is a new MTG player survey that is clearly how do we make an online component of competitive Magic work? If long-term, short-term, what formats do you like? How much do you play them? They go deep. Do you play tabletop? Do you play arena? Do you play online? They want to know, and they want to somehow figure out how often you've been playing and what that means to them. I'm not exactly sure. They run lots of these surveys. They run I'd say 6 to 10 a year, depending. Sometimes they run them right after set releases. Sometimes they don't, where they try to get this deep dive of data. So go there, make your voice heard. This is the stuff that they use and they point to. This is how they justify making decisions, is based on, not solely, but, people in an argument, and kind of when you're at Wizards, you sort of just argue all day in many aspects. They're going to say, hey, the survey said that so-and-so number of people on Magic Online play so-and-so often. This is the type of stuff where they get it from. So. Yeah,
it was a little... I took the survey during the pre-show, and I was surprised by how many of these questions I just didn't have an answer for. Where there's a point towards the end where they say, what would it take for you to go to a Magic event again? And it was if your opponents were wearing masks, if the staff was wearing masks, if you had plexiglass between you, if the staff had plexiglass in front of them, if there was hand washing, temperatures. And I just didn't, I haven't even thought that far ahead because it seems so far away.
Right.
And thank God they had a no idea radio button because I just genuinely didn't know. And even now that I'm thinking about it, I have no idea. I was a little concerned, though. I'm a little concerned for the people that chose the, I have no issues and I require nothing. And it's what?
Do you play this game? Do you understand we're existing to complain about the way our $100 bills are folded?
Exactly.
Seriously.
The people that are just sign me up. Let's do this. I was just nothing. Really?
This $400 card should cost $200. I don't understand. It makes me mad. Oh, God. All right. So, moving on here. The secret Lair Theros, a surprise to nobody, says they're on schedule to ship in June.
Okay.
So for those who got the Theros stargazing thing, maybe it's coming next month, maybe.
Jesus.
I don't know. There's just delay after delay.
Yeah.
It was delayed, and so it's...
I've had that since before, because my boyfriend bought one, and we've had it since before the pandemic.
Right, because the way they run it is that they print some number up front and they ship those out immediately as soon as the orders come in, and then the ones who don't get that up front, part of the upfront shipment, they have to be shipped later. Mm-hmm. Well, then the world ended, as we know it, and so things are delayed. So things are just delayed all over the place, and this is not just affecting Magic. This is everything. Yu-Gi-Oh's delayed, Dragon Ball Super's delayed. Trust me, all the other games are experiencing their own delays in their own time. Mm-hmm. So it's been pretty gross. Moving on here to Desperate Remix. God bless him. Saffron Olive sure does like to kick the beehive. And the beehive kicking this week was... Commander isn't popular because you have a legend in your command zone, he tweets. While that is a unique aspect of the format, the reason Commander is popular is because the incentive is to have a fun game with your friends rather than win at all costs. As a result, it's impossible to port over what makes Commander popular to tournament formats. The incentives are completely different. In a very real sense, in his opinion, the Companion debacle is about Wizards just not getting Commander as much as anything else.
Wizards this was a dumbass take. I mean, anybody who knows...
we were just talking about data collection for what it's worth. We were
I'm just saying though, but
it.
these are people that love Commander. Ethan Fleischer's was on Gathering Magic once for his Grimgrin deck. To say that Wizards folks don't get Commander is just come on.
Yeah, and so Blake Rasmussen...
He had me in the first half, I'm not going to lie. The first tweet was fine, and then he was Wizards doesn't get it, and I was good, we're done.
Right. Blake did say, look, I kind of get where you're going with this, Blake tweets, but you're ignoring years of products and communications about how we view Commander to come to this conclusion based on one recent mechanic.
If anything, I would think Commander's the one format that they do have their finger on the pulse
they got
of.
Their
right. That they specifically designed so many cards each year just for that format.
Yeah. Literally
just for that format. So I don't know. It was a weird take, It's probably not his best one, but it was okay. It was just a little odd.
Yeah.
I think. So here's the real question.
Thank goodness he tweeted it though, or else we'd have to be talking about something else right now.
There you
we
go.
were floundering during the pre-show. We were like, "Can we get?" I was close to just starting a fight on Twitter, just to have something.
Yeah,
to
we
Just
need
go
more.
call somebody a name.
We need somebody. We need Bob from the dugout to come back.
Go show your butt on Maine or something.
Like, can we get a tirade?
Let's
Can we get
figure
a
it out.
rant?
All right,
Yeah.
it's fine. Well, we got one.
It's fine.
So that was great.
Yeah.
But how about we boil it down to this? Okay. How about we boil it down to this? Do you ever want them to make new companions?
I mean, I've never really played with these, to be quite honest. So it's kind of like you'll never miss what you never had. So like, I don't really have a dog in that fight. Where it's like, if I had to go based on just the impact.
Well,
No.
watching the comments is fantastic because there are yeses and there are no's. There's like absolutely
I
not.
think it was kind of like energy. It's like, am I glad they did it? Yes. Seeing the impact that it's had, I think it was a fun experiment, but obviously it didn't
Silver
work.
bordered.
Yeah, and so
Silver border would be interesting. Silver
Yeah.
border would be super.
Silver border companion.
Silver border. So, for example, a silver border companion says you can only play me in red sleeves.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be
Great.
kind of cool? That'd be kind of neat, right? Stuff like that. 'Cause
Every
that's stuff-
card in you can't play mythics or rares in your deck.
right? No foils in your
No
deck.
foils.
Yeah.
Sure.
Stuff that you can care about on an uncard, which is kind of
Cards
cool.
cards that only have fewer than 2 lines of text.
Let me tell you what. Planeswalker Companions makes me throw up in my mouth. Don't ever say that again. That's gross. Get that out of here. That's nasty. I think Companions are neat. I think they clearly went too far, but I
They
would
are
not
very
be.
neat.
I would not be
in much the
100%.
same way a great white shark is neat, but I also don't need to put my head in its mouth.
I could go with that. That's a good analogy.
I could see if
Is
Companions
it?
stayed.
I was not okay.
If Companions stayed in Commander products, they got them out of Brawl. They banned the crap out of the bad ones in older formats. I think it could be interesting.
It's
'Cause
like
that-
when
interesting.
it's kind of to kind of build off Ruben's point. It's like, how sometimes in cartoons when you see like the electrical wire that like jumps and dances, that's neat. Do I want to be anywhere near that? No.
Okay. Moving on to some crazy rumors. This is all rumored. I have no idea if any of this is correct. They note that there's going to be a Pro Tour slated for mid-June. It's going to be on Arena, all standard, and the announcement is expected next week. Also, there's going to be serious prize cuts and no mentions of future invites or fractional invites or any of that stuff.
And this is just a rumor. Right?
This is just what this person's
Yeah.
heard because the pros, if you're part of the MPL or whatever, you are locked down with that contract. They are.
Crap! I gotta unblock them to read this.
I know, right? They lock you down big time. You can't say anything bad about Magic or Wizards or whatever. They come after you for that too. So anything those people may know they can't talk about. And they say they're put the pros are put in a tough spot because if the pros know that that a PT's coming up on a certain day, they can start to test and grind harder than those who don't know, which is weird and interesting. And someone said, "Look, I'm part of the." They're not part of the MPL. They're part of the group that's right outside
The
it.
Rivals.
The Rivals. Thank you.
Oh,
And
jeez.
they're like, we have not heard of this, and we're like, well, it's because they're not telling the rival people. They're only telling the MPL people. So
yeah.
yada yada. Take this with a huge grain of salt until anything comes officially. It was
Rumor,
certainly rumor. Look, guys, slow
Yeah,
down
it's
this week.
worded. He's using a lot of the same language that somebody else likes to use in terms of like
boy.
the elites, and it's just like, oh no! Like
yeah, we don't go
even
into
if
the
this
elite
was true,
stuff.
there were so many ways that you could have worded this to where it wasn't so incendiary. Like it just, I'm not now.
Trying to call wizards idiots in the middle of it is difficult to share information.
Yeah,
that is
and if I
taken
already have him
seriously.
blocked, it's not a
Yeah,
good
we're
sign.
already on it. Yeah, okay. Either way. So, one Max Con, who we've talked about a few times.
Love
Great
him.
dude. Max is awesome. Terrific presence on Twitter at MaxPlaysMTG.
He's also hashtag Pocket Judge. So if you ever have a question on Twitter, if
He's
you
really good.
hashtag that, he will find you and answer your question.
It's true. He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
it's like magic.
But note, he bought one of the secret layers, and then he's at a different address now in June than he was in February, and he needed to change his shipping address. Now, this is interesting because I actually hit this problem myself, and it turned out to not be an issue. But once upon a time, I think I ordered the Eldraine lands, that one, and I had put the wrong zip code in in the shipping address. And I'm like, as soon as I hit order, I was like, oh my God, on the order confirmation screen, I saw it was going to the wrong zip code. So him, much like myself, had contacted them, and then they said, well, you can cancel your order or hope it gets to you. And I'm like, that's your option. You can get refunded or cross your fingers.
Is that what they said to you too?
Oh yeah. And so I was just like, look, all the details are in there. Like the city's right, everything's right, except the zip code. I trust that the mail system can handle it. It did. I got my stuff okay, thankfully.
Thank God for the Postal Service.
I know, right? But could that stick around, please? But thankfully, it got there. But for Max, they're like, look, you're in a completely different location. It's on you, bro. Can't help it. So they're telling him only a refund is going to fix this problem for him at this point. And this is after it being like bumped up, you know what I mean? Like bumped up in priority level or whatever, which was amazing. He had a follow-up tweet where he was talking about it. He said, as an update, my request was bumped up to a WotC supervisor who is working with, quote, Wizard Scale Fast store support, whatever that is, to update the address, and then bumped up further to Scale Fast support, which then told me that they advised me to cancel my order and get a refund. That is horrible. This is literally like the lowest level of customer service is changing someone's address on an order they made. This Scale Fast place, as I understand it, is a service that is used by large companies to sell things, that may be either in high demand or they're able to sell a lot of something. So this is an entire infrastructure made to sell stuff, and you can't go in there and edit one address. And for me, again, this was like right after I made the order. They're like, no, sorry. And this is, from February to June. There's certain things I can understand, but this is a pattern of, you should have done it right the first time. Sorry, bye, GG. But this is not just any product. This isn't like he's ordering pillows or something. These are collectible things that he got at a very small window that you can't get anywhere else.
Are you saying there aren't collectible pillows?
There are not collectible pillows. Please tell me there's not a collectible pillow market. It will make me sad.
There's 100% a collectible pillow market.
As soon as the words left my mouth, there is. You just know there is. Oh my goodness. All right. So wrapping up the show here. Moving on to a little bit of splash damage. There was a D&D My Little Pony set released. Wasn't that amazing? I'm linking it here in the chats and the show notes if you want to see it. Cutie Marks and Dragons, ladies and gentlemen, is a crossover collection. And that is awesome. And I'm looking forward to, more My Little Pony magic stuff, My Little Planeswalkers and stuff. Let's make that happen. That would be dope.
It looks really cute. I'm very pleased. It comes with a D20.
That's awesome.
The name Cutie Marks and Dragons feels like it shouldn't be the final name of this product. That feels a little lazy to me.
You kind of already lost that battle.
Well, whatever.
Well, jumping over the next topic because it's part of the joke, which is still great. They're still threatening to make a Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah,
they keep threatening.
Do you remember the first one? Did you see that one?
With one of the various
one
of the various Sundry Wayans brothers. That's what was right. Yep.
So bad.
Oh my god.
It wasn't good. But
it was not good.
I will say that there are a number of people. Dungeons and Dragons is a very popular pastime among the Hollywood elite because it's a storytelling tool.
Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello obviously legendarily runs the most exclusive D&D game in LA. Vin Diesel, for those of you that don't know, is a huge D&D fan. Yep. And the rumor that I've heard is that he keeps making Fast and Furious movies because he's trying to finance his own D&D movie.
Oh, jeez.
I could see it.
Which would be great.
Movie stars do that all the time where they have this passion project. And the idea that you can make one of those movies and make it good, it's not out of the realm of possibility. No. It's just that it's very, very difficult to do so. It's like... Well, think of the...
Maybe there's going to be a hot take coming, but...
Think of the comic book movies that happened for 20 years until 2004-ish, until Iron Man.
All right, I'll just keep it brief. I think the reason why it's so difficult is because of the audience. Because we are so critical and we have such love for our things and we imagine them a certain way and, we want the best for ourselves too. When we hear that a movie's being made, we want a $300 million budget and we want, the biggest A-list stars. And the reality is that doesn't always happen. And so, I think the actual directors and the people behind the scenes, that's part of it, but I think a lot of it is just we go into these things with such crazy expectations that, you know, I wonder if these people can ever really live up to it, you know?
I will also say that the typical Dungeons & Dragons adventure does not match up very well with the typical plot line organization of either a movie or a TV show. Mm-hmm. When you have a movie or a TV show, typically, there is one, maybe two main characters, and you follow them through their adventure. Right. Or it's a massive epic with dozens of equivalent main characters. There isn't really four main characters. There isn't really that kind of thing outside of the sitcom world. The sitcom is essentially a D&D party.
I mean,
where
you
you've
could
got
argue
your four main characters.
I mean, I think you could argue that something like Lord of the Rings could be, you know, a D&D movie in terms of like the setup and there's villains and whatever, and the story, there's lots of characters, and they can make something like that work. This is the way I'll close out on this. I had stupidly high expectations for Avengers Endgame, and it still met them.
Yeah.
Like,
that,
just saying.
Yeah, Avengers Endgame is a good example of an ensemble group adventure, right. And probably the Endgame and Infinity War saga is probably the first time since Lord of the Rings that you've had a group of 6 to 12 main characters, all of whom could argue that they are the main character, succeed. It's a very difficult thing to pull off in popular culture. Usually you either end up with Game of Thrones that has dozens and dozens and dozens of characters, or Breaking Bad where you have like one main character, two main characters.
We don't speak of Game of Thrones. Not how that happened.
Game of Thrones was good for like most of it.
For 6 seasons.
Yeah, man.
And now no one talks about it.
And a movie.
Now no one talks about it.
Yeah.
I think that it premiered last year at this time. Which last year at this time, as you know, was 25 years ago.
Yes.
Because time is meaningless.
Time is a construct.
Pour one out for Danny's wig.
And we turn the corner here to the finisher. 15 years ago this week, probably the most famous moment in the history of video game memes occurred when the now infamous Leeroy Jenkins video was gifted to the internet for all time. The character's popularity resulted in his inclusion in the World of Warcraft trading card game. A Leeroy Jenkins legendary card was later released in Hearthstone as part of the game's classic card set. Upper Deck Entertainment released a World of Warcraft miniatures game in late 2008, which included a Leeroy Jenkins figurine. It has been lampooned in Family Guy, MacGyver, Mass Effect, and How I Met Your Mother. It's absolutely a cultural milestone. But Magic doesn't yet have their Leeroy Jenkins moment. Yet. So, time's up. Let's do this. What's going to be Magic's watershed quote moment, Ruben?
Well, as bad as Companion has been, it's not the foreboding awfulness of what is really the villain of the current format. Time's up. Let's do this. Zenith! Flare! For like 38 or whatever.
Aaron?
Well, as the resident wower of the show, I am the original Estrus after all. I know that Upper Blackrock Spire raid or Ubers is the raid. And if we're going off of classic Ubers, this probably means we are heading towards the Beast. So all we need to do now is get a Beast of our own. So Evan, the Bears need you now more than ever. Let's show off them Irwins.
That's right. Just rip this shirt off. Just make it happen.
Time's up.
Just do it. I'm on OnlyFans right now. OnlyFans.com/Matt. Okay, now.
Only Bears.
Right.
Evan Bearwin.
Jesus. We've already seen the line that will become Magic's magic moment. A uniquely viral moment that contains the gravitas and passion and excitement that Leeroy brought to WoW back in 2005. So get ready for t-shirts, bumper stickers, fidget spinners, and Pog Slammers featuring Magic the Gathering's most indelible character quote, decidedly male.
I'm surprised there's no one's made any sort of parody shirts off of that. That's perfect.
It's ripe.
It's like filthy casual, like decidedly male. That's an opportunity right there.
Tell you what. But that ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Ruben.
Can we have Slammers as part of our next Kickstarter?
Yeah, Pog Slammers.
Pog Slammers.
We're doing this.
Wow.
Great.
Moving to our
Come
final
on and
slide.
slam. And welcome
to Magic the Gathering.
Magic Mics.
Magic Mics, that's right.
Magic Bam.
I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Camel and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, Twitch.tv at Magic Mics, our Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMicsPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMicsPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes or Spotify, or just join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.